Downtown Decatur, it's the Faber Files. Hello, I'm your host, Bill Faber. Because democracy demands debate, we present this program, a program of community interests and issues. Nowhere else on TV, radio, or newspaper are the issues and interests presented in such an in-depth way. Tonight's feature is part 2 of the political debate between Senator Kyle McCarter and challenger Tim Dudley for the Senate seat in the Springfield legislature. Let's watch as we view part 2 of this debate.
Illinois currently charges more to attend public universities than many surrounding states charge. Youth and those displaced in the workforce are looking for higher education, and yet the cost is high and the assistance is limited. Do you have any plans to make higher education more affordable?
Mr. Dudley, would you answer this first?
Basically, I just mentioned a lot of what I thought would make education more affordable. Definitely, though, creating jobs is, everybody will tell you it's the end-all, fix-all. Creating jobs in our state will fix a lot of our ails. And like I said, our students deserve to be educated, every one of them, not one left out. And I'll go back to what I said about the MAP grants and making sure that we don't put extra burdens on our schools with legislative scholarships and other things like that. We have to make sure that we give them the tools they need to educate our children and educate them in the right way and keep them here in our state, just like I said in my last answer. But I just can't stress how important it is to get that education. Things aren't like they were 30 years ago when some people didn't have to go to school. If you don't go now, you're going to get left behind, and we have to make sure that everybody has that opportunity.
I think the question was, how do you make higher education more affordable? Right? I'll give you an example of a community college that's done a good job, and that's Lakeland in Mattoon, outside the district, but a lot of the folks in our district go there. They have been very proactive to put together programs with John Deere, with private companies, to where they benefit from those. They train people that are going out to work on their equipment. They work together with them. That provides an income stream for the college. That keeps the cost down. The other thing is IDOT testing. They've got a program with IDOT that, again, provides a stream to make education more affordable. In fact, the leaders in that school set forth what is the $1 per hour charge that people can afford while working a minimum wage job, still pay for their education, and continue working to get a degree. And that's what they've done. They've been successful.
Mr. Busman?
This question will be for Senator McCarter. Senator McCarter, will you support the governor's call for an income tax hike? If not, will you support such a hike when paired with spending cuts across the board?
I will absolutely not support a tax increase. In fact, SB 750, which came through the Education Committee, folks, I mean, this is supposed to be for kids. They were going to raise taxes by 67%, plus 39 new sales taxes. And, even a haircut would cost you more. Now, ask your barber what he thinks about a tax on haircuts. I mean, this is the wrong thing to do. And I fought against that. I fought against it in the committee. I fought against it on the floor. The Senate passed it anyway. It was the largest tax increase in the history of Illinois. It would be a job killer. If you want to create jobs, you want to put people back to work, don't put more burden on folks. Don't put more burden on small business, because that's who you put it. That's who we would put it on. 75% of small businesses are S corps. They're taxed by the personal rate, and that's what was raised. That would have been a job killer on against that.
Mr. Dudley?
I absolutely do not, support any of the tax increases that are supported in Springfield or have been proposed in Springfield right now. The answer is growing our way out of this recession. I know a lot of legislators like to say it's just Illinois, but 42 states in this union are having economic problems right now, and several on the verge of bankruptcy. So it's not just Illinois. But what we have to do, and I mentioned earlier, is we have to get proactive about creating jobs. And I know we saw in the newspaper just a few days ago how the newspaper were supporting Tenasca. which is the clean coal fire generating plant in Taylorville. We've heard about Future Gen in Mattoon and Secure Energy here in Decatur. And it said Frank Watson was a champion of that. But unfortunately, nobody stepped up to be the champion since Frank left. I'll be that champion that'll step up to bring that plant to Taylorville and to bring those jobs here, those good paying jobs, and put our coal miners back to work and service businesses that are going to come in and service this plant and this coal mine. You're talking 2,500 jobs, and that's nothing to sneeze at.
Mr. Pollard?
May I ask, at any time are we going to be able to?
Yes,
clarify
you'll have
questions?
3
Okay.
minutes at the very end
All right.
to come back to any point that you feel needed to be clarified. Mr. Pollard?
Candidates, many people, many of your constituents are wondering how the state budget got to be where it is. There's currently a resolution stuck in committee in the Illinois House of Representatives that calls for a full forensic audit over a large portion of the state's finances. My question is, if the piece of legislation were to make it to the Senate, what position would you take on its vote and why?
Mr. Dudley, would you answer that first, please?
First of all, we have an auditor general in the state of Illinois that is nonpartisan and doesn't work for either party. And his job is to do those things and to have the General Assembly look at those and pass legislation or do what it takes to change the process. Now, I've read a lot of reports on forensic audits. And a lot of the ones you hear about are where states saved $1 billion in Kentucky or Missouri. I read up on those, and basically what they did was they sold off a bunch of property that the state owned and called it a forensic audit. In fact, I've read a lot of places where they even say it's kind of bogus. But that forensic audit in Illinois would cost us $700 million. And if we got legislators out there that are saying, well, we could make $6 billion in savings, obviously they must already know what the savings is, so why are we spending $700 million on a forensic audit? So I would not be in favor of a forensic audit. I want the Auditor General and the legislators to do their jobs.
I, of course, am in favor of the forensic audit because I've sponsored the bill. Here's the thing. Folks, people in Springfield who are doing wrong things and wasting money are not just going to raise their hands if we ask everybody who's doing so to raise their hand. It's not going to happen. We're going to have to bring transparency to this government before we'll ever see accountability. And if someone is so afraid that in a forensic audit that they have to bring an attorney to the audit, maybe they should get an attorney. We have to hold these people responsible. We're talking about a management audit, looking at process. It's not whether 2 + 2 = 4. It's whether we should have spent that second 2. Whether the program really made sense and whether it should be a priority. We've got to cut our spending. We might as well cut wasteful spending, fraud, and abuse, and then we'll have enough money to do the things that we need to, like pay our schools and our nursing homes.
Emily?
Unemployment for teenagers is currently running at about 50%. Do you have any plans to improve job prospects for our generation?
Senator McCarter?
Well, you know, I hire people all the time, and I know what it takes to create jobs. In my manufacturing company, we're growing in the middle of this recession, thank God, and we're hiring people now. I know what it takes to create jobs. It's not just a bunch of talk, but I too know that if you take the burden off a small business, if you lower their taxes, you limit the litigation, and you take heavy regulation burdens off of them, they will reinvest that in people. And you think, well, what happens if they make more money? Well, we tax them more, and we have more revenue for the state. But typically, small business people like myself are going to reinvest that in people. The more people I have working, the more sales I have, the more profit I make. The more profit I make, the more people I can hire, the more people I can put back to work. So that's how you do it.
Mr. Dudley?
Obviously, jobs for any age level is a problem right now. It all goes back to what we talked about earlier about making sure that our children are trained and retrained in college and make sure they can get there and get the training they need to be, competitive in the jobs market. As far as a young person just coming out of school, when I was a young person back in the 70s, they had a program in Illinois called the CETA program. And what that did was for the first 6 months that you worked for an employer, if they would hire you, they would pay half your salary while you were being trained and learned the job. And I think if this incentive was brought back to the table, or programs like that, that would give small businesses and large businesses the incentive to hire our young people and get them going on to, you know, hopefully a career in a great business here in Illinois.
Mr. Busboom.
This question is for Mr. Dudley. Mr. Dudley, you have stated over and over in your campaign that job creation is important to the financial healing of our state. What specifically will you do to bring new jobs to the 51st District if elected?
Well, specifically, it'll go back to something I mentioned a little bit earlier. You know, they're looking for a legislator to step up, to carry the weight with this TANASCA program. And I'm telling you here right now today that I am that person that will carry that ball for the TANASCA program and others like it. I've also advocated for wind farms. In fact, we're going to be bringing the first 2 wind farms to Macon County here just pretty quick that we've been working on the Macon County Board. Also, I've talked about Illinois is the #1 agribusiness state in the whole union. And we need to work on developing our biofuels and biodiesels. We try to get people to really look into that back when I was on the Richland Community College Board of Trustees. And they dragged their feet, and guess what? They wound up building them in Texas. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with TANASCA if we don't get somebody to carry the ball in this program. And high-speed rail, obviously, is something we're looking at in Illinois. But we've just got to get proactive and quit crying about what's wrong with Illinois and pointing fingers all the time and start getting to what's right with Illinois.
Senator McCarter.
Well, I'm glad I got an opportunity to respond to TANASCA. November of last year, I signed a letter of support for TANASCA, and I pretty much picked the ball up where Senator Watson, left off, and I've been a supporter of that ever since. So I hope there's no more questions about that. I mean, that TANASCA brings jobs to our community, helps the Decatur Water District, and it'd be nothing but a positive impact for our community. What am I going to personally do? I'm going to personally do what I've been doing in the last year. I'll give you an example. I've already brought 2 companies to this town to look at investing in Decatur. I've taken other companies to other towns in throughout the district. But these are large employers. These are people that I know in the business community. I know them personally, and I've asked them to come and invest in Decatur. We're talking about a lot of manufacturing jobs. And so I'm going to use my position in the community as a business leader and a manufacturer.
Mr. Bullock.
As we're running short on time, each of the panelists will have one more question.
This will be for Mr. Dudley. Sir, the 51st District is a place of growing cultural, religious, and economic distinction, and one of increasing importance on the international stage, as it is resident to large multinational companies. But what are your plans to try and relate to a group of constituents that you may not necessarily relate to due to differing economic and personal struggles?